And joining us now in the brand new Hyundai Texans radio studio is Executive Vice President and General Manager Nick Caserio. Nick, great to see you.
Fellas, great to be here.
You like the new studio?
It looks awesome.
Okay.
Congratulations.
We're searching for compliments here.
I like that. He congratulates us for the studio.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, after camp is over, preseason over, initial 53 set, how do you feel going into week one with everything that's been done?
Productive offseason, productive preseason. Hopefully we got a lot of work done here in training camp. The team is in place for the time being. As you all know, there will likely be a number of moving parts throughout the course of the year. But as far as the players that are in the building, between the roster and the practice squad, feel pretty good about the group we've assembled. And hopefully gives ourselves a decent opportunity to get ready for a really good Rams team that we'll talk about in a few minutes.
Nick, one of the things I asked D'Amico, and I'll ask you, going away, getting to the Greenbrier for a week, kind of being away from everything, getting joint practice with Detroit before we played the preseason game, those time frames, getting away, how valuable were those two instances for this team?
We felt they were tremendously productive, and they were each kind of different. The whole notion behind the Greenbrier was just to kind of relocate, kind of give us a week, not in isolation, but just kind of away. We have to deal with the heat in Houston. It's real. We all know that. But in an effort to make sure that we optimize the players' performance and give them recovery and some of the other things, and the Greenbrier has enough facilities, a lot of resources that are available to us, we're able to kind of simulate the processes that we have in place. And when you're out there by yourself, literally that's all you have is one another to be around and rely on. So you meet, you practice, you eat together, you're doing things collectively as a team. It's an opportunity for the team to grow. D'Amico has talked about that. It's vitally important. And then with the Lions situation, similar but a little bit different. It was a shorter time frame. Went out there, simulate the travel. We practiced with another team, got really, really good work done. Two professional teams and organizations that have similar mindset. Had a good day's work. We kind of knew going into the game that the practice was going to be for a certain cohort of players, and there was another group that was going to play in the game on Saturday. Had a really good day of practice, and then kind of had the off day, and then kind of the day before game routine. But we felt overall, both of those opportunities were really productive for our team on a lot of different levels.
And the offensive line made progress throughout the preseason, Nick. Is it safe to say week one, we don't see the finished product quite yet? It takes a few more weeks to gel as an offensive line, especially a newly constructed one in many ways?
Yeah, as a team, you're always going to have moving parts in training camp, and the spring is one component of the team building and working with one another, but you're really not practicing. And then once you get to training camp, it's an opportunity for different people to work with one another. The big thing on the offensive line is consistent communication on a snap-to-snap basis. You're going to have 65, 70 plays offensively. The more that whoever's going to be on the field can work together, but by the same token, we know if something happens in a game, if you lose a player, somebody else is going to have to go in there. So you're trying to mix and match and simulate as best you can what's going to happen when a group is playing together. So work through practice here this week. We'll put 5 out there on Sunday against the Rams. Whether or not it's the same group at the end of the year, we'll see. I'm sure there's going to be some changes and things that we're going to have to deal with during the course of the year. But overall, I feel like we're in a pretty good spot with that group.
I hardly ever ask you about somebody that I don't think is going to play, but I hope we never see this young man on the field. Yet he made the 53-man roster, and that's Graham Mertz. I feel like that Minnesota game, and I said it often, Nick, the Minnesota game, not really emblematic of what he did throughout training camp. What did you see from Graham throughout the entire training camp that made you feel comfortable about keeping him on the 53?
Sure. Really, from the time he walked in the building in May to kind of this point here, has been very consistent. He was in a situation where his season was cut short at Florida last year with the injury, pretty well documented. I think they actually talked about it on the whole SEC show on Netflix, which I happened to watch. And it was a good snapshot of where he was, some of the things that he had to go through from the injury to the time that we drafted him. And then when he walked in the building, Graham's a really smart kid. He works very hard. The big thing from his standpoint is working on his lower body strength and flexibility and just playing football. When you haven't been hit in a while, when that's the first time you're playing football, there's going to be an adjustment period that we all have to go through, that all the players have to go through. But he's handled everything. He understands kind of what his role is on the team, and he's prepared. He's smart. He works hard. And then when he went out there against the Lions, took advantage of his opportunity. But as a player, we drafted him for a reason because we felt this is a player that we wanted to work with in our program. And he's certainly made progress, and glad he's here.
Nick, some of the new additions, when you acquire them, Christian Kirk, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, players like that, do you know automatically he's going to play in this spot and this is what he's going to do? Or is it let's get everybody together and figure it out sort of as we go along?
No, it's a great question, Mark. In some cases, yes. Some cases, not necessarily. As an example, with safeties, Do they have multi-position flexibility? Are they a safety only? We've seen CJ play a lot of football. He played safety. He's actually played some nickel. He's played some dime. And then in Kirk, he's played inside the formation, outside the formation. Really what we try to do is say, who are the players? How do we best allocate our resources and put them in a position where they can maximize their overall skill set? But I would say both players have a certain degree of flexibility. How we actually deploy them will probably change during the course of the year.
So I've waited this long. I can't believe I made it this long without talking about the
I thought you were
Rams.
going to go a little longer.
I know, but I just feel like it's time. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while. We've been talking about 2025. The schedule comes out. It's the Rams, week 1. Okay, it's an NFC team, which is always kind of fun in a sense because we don't get to see this team often, which makes the scouting report for the Rams all the more interesting. It starts with Matt Stafford, we think, deal with the back issue, but one of the best defensive lines in the league, offensive line that's worked together, a couple of really good backs. What are your thoughts about the Rams and what you'll see? The scouting report for the Rams. Here we go.
Sure. Great program top to bottom. Significant challenge in front of us. It starts at the top, with Coach McVay and Les. They put together an unbelievable team. They've had a program that's been in place for a number of years. Kevin Demoff is involved in their program as well. So they have really good leadership on the top end. Good coordinator. They have a lot of continuity and a lot of stability that's been put in place. On the defensive side of the ball, Chris Shula is defensive coordinator. Really good coach. And Chris kind of bought his time and did a really good job last year with his opportunity. Happened to coach one year at John Carroll as well, so he has that feather in his cap. And Chase Blackburn in the kicking game, played in the league and has done a good job in the kicking game. So really good coaching staff, really good coordinators, and then offensively and defensively, they have a lot of good football players. You mentioned the defensive side of the football. Probably, we'll see how it goes. We're going to see a number of good fronts throughout the course of the year, but really 1 through 4 and 1 through 5, if you include Poona Ford, who they signed in the offseason, who's kind of, I'd say, an underrated, not really talked about very much, but he's going to help their team. Between Fisk, Kobe, Young and Verse, and then Ford, everything starts with the front. I mean, they've done an unbelievable job. They cause a lot of problems, so, it's going to be a big part of the game. Have a number of players at the linebacker and secondary level, very instinctive. Some younger players, some veteran players. I think Landman, who they signed from Atlanta, been a very productive football player. Sounds like he needs to start at Mike and be the signal caller. It's funny, when you look at the actual composition of the linebacker room, all those players are undrafted, so it's a great job by their group finding players who maybe aren't highly thought of, but are good football players and have found a way to stick. Curl is going to make a big impact, made a good impact for him. They drafted Kitchens last year, so good safety group. And then I would say Lake kind of fills some of the roles that Petrie does for us, kind of nickel to safety, another undrafted or late round player. And have some experience at corner with Witherspoon and Williams. So this is a pretty deep football team on the defensive side of the ball. And offensively, you mentioned it, Johnny, everything starts with Matthew. Yeah. I mean, one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the league. Borderline Hall of Famer. He's going to be there. He's as tough as any player in the league. And if he can't go, they basically have another starting quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo. Adams is obviously a big signing for them this offseason. I'd say the Adams acquisition, along with the drafting of Ferguson at tight end, is going to make a big imprint on the offense. And they drafted Hunter in the 4th round. Similar, we drafted Woody Marks, and I think he's probably going to make a little bit of impact for him at some point, understanding Kyron's as good of an all-around back in the league. But deep at tight end, good receiver group. You throw Puka in there, who, Puka's career kind of speaks for himself to this point. And then they have some players in the kicking game that can be a factor. So this is a very good football team. They won the NFC West. They made it to the divisional round, had Philly on the rope. So we understand the challenge in front of us on the road opening day. So, which brings some challenges in and of itself, but hopefully our team will be ready to go.
A lot of people talk about, D'Amico has seen them before as a defensive coordinator, but can you discuss the way they've evolved running the football? They've changed things a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. It really goes back to when they drafted Kyron, and Kyron was playing a little bit more. They started to go to a little bit more gun, pistol, not necessarily under center. You saw that evolve, and something Sean had talked about, not this year, but previous years, how they made a subtle tweak. And I think that's kind of the brilliance of Sean, is just his ability to kind of see things and make some adjustments, and all good coaches do that. You kind of have some core things that you believe in, some things in place, but then at some point you have to evolve and make an adjustment or make a change, and they did that offensively. So their run game certainly has evolved over the course of time.
Nick, what's the biggest challenge in week 1 from a preparation standpoint? Because you don't want to overdo it, but you don't want to make sure you got everything in that you want to have in for this particular. How tough is that in week 1? And also on that, the non-scouted look, something they show you like, whoa, we haven't seen that. How quick do you have to be able to adapt to those things and get them taken care of so they don't fester throughout the game?
Really, that's what week one is about across the league. A lot of unknowns from a personnel standpoint, schematic standpoint. What are some of the tweaks that teams have made? So really you have to go back to your fundamentals and your foundation, your core principles, some of the things that you've been doing going all the way back to the spring. And then once you get into the game will start to evolve. Then you can figure out how do we need to adjust, or a little bit less of this, a little bit more of this, and just kind of figure out how the game is being played. I think the big thing is from a personnel standpoint, how are they going to deploy some of the new players? Where are they going to line up? What's their role in the offense between Ferguson, between Adams? Does that affect Puka? Are they going to use multiple backs? So there's always some unknowns that take place, especially the opening game. And in the Rams' case, none of these players that we're going to see on Sunday have seen a snap in a preseason. So we have to be prepared for a number of things, but it just goes back to basic fundamentals and hopefully communication and making sure that we're doing the right things.
Playing on the West Coast, and D'Amico told us going out early for that. What is the key, or a few of the keys, in a West Coast game, body clock, whatever else comes into play?
It's just acclimating to the overall climate. So just gives us an extra day to kind of get simulated, get situated, maximize the rest, go through a normal Saturday preparation. The game is later. It's early, but it's late, depending on the time zone that you're in. Yeah. So all those things kind of factor into the calculus, and we felt that was the best thing for the team. And we've always talked about whatever we can do to help the players to maximize their performance on Sunday, we're going to look at, and if we have to make a tweak along the way, then we'll do that.
Because it's an NFC team, a team we see every 4 years, and the last time we saw them, 21, I guess, was here. Does it make the preparation more difficult because you haven't seen them at all? How does it kind of make the preparation, because this is not a team we face all the time?
Yeah, with the NFC West in particular, we haven't seen this group since 3-4 years ago, whatever it was. So that game is probably not going to be relevant. What you have to go back through the 24 season, what happened, what are some of the things they did, and then evaluate their personnel, look at the preseason, who are the new personnel, how are they using them, what are they doing. The preseason is really not a big scheme, sort of. That's not the theme. Right. It's just more about getting the players to execute. So there'll be an adjustment period like we just talked about, and we'll have to be ready to handle something without a doubt.
Well, so much talk in the preseason about getting down to the initial 53, and you always talk about the practice squad, and you got so many of your guys coming back to you, which is great. How tough is it now? Who's going to dress on Sunday? And the guys who don't dress are good players. Whoever it is, they're really good players, and that's going to be tough to lay that news on them, if you will, and just get ready to play.
For sure, Mark. I mean, we have anywhere from 5 to 7 inactive players based on if there's elevation. So if you don't elevate anybody, then you go from 53. You can only take 48 to the game. So you're going to have to tell somebody you're not playing that is a pretty good football player. So you just have to be honest with them, just to communicate with them. Their role could change or evolve during the course of the year. Part of their responsibility is to prepare as if they're going to play, including the practice squad players like we've talked about. And whatever decision we make for that game, then we have to deal with it. And then once we get through the Rams game, then what's our preparation look like for the Tampa game? And are we using the same group? There's always a lot of moving parts, and it's never easy, especially if a player has earned the opportunity to play. But per the rules, you can't take everybody to the game. So sometimes you have to make some difficult decisions.
Nick, you mentioned one of the most, I think, unheralded assets of Matt Stafford's game, and that's his toughness. Beyond that, and including that, what makes him so difficult to face, especially in week one?
A gifted thrower, can get the ball to any parts of the field. He probably hasn't seen it. You're not going to show him anything that he hasn't seen. He's been in the league however many years he's been in the league. So his ability to understand and process information at a high rate of speed is one of his strengths. And he can literally get the ball to any part of the field. He can kind of adjust his arm angle and his arm slot. And it's hard to get to him. I mean, he gets rid of the ball as a quick release. And he's willing to hang in a pocket and take a hit to deliver the ball under duress. Massive amount of respect for Matthew and what he's done, and he's earned all the accolades that he's received.
Week one, when you look at all the analytics, all the data you have medically or whatever else on guys going the full distance in a game versus whatever they've done in the preseason, I felt like there were a lot of reps in that joint practice with the Lions, a lot of reps for the ones and the twos, but this is a full game now. How does that come into play? And I got to think it really affects week two as well.
Yeah, really the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season, you're kind of, all right, where are the players? Have they built up enough capacity to make it through an entire game? Defensively, we rotate a lot of players in on the front anyway, so we're going to use our depth. We're going to use everybody. But nobody's played a full game to this point. So 65, 70 plays on either side of the ball. Nobody has played that amount in a real game in 2025. Have they done it previously? Sure. So we're going to have to monitor that and see what their loads are, what are their speeds, and then their recovery after the game. But the first few weeks are all kind of tied together, because then you might have to look at practice. How do we just practice? And then it's going to be a long week, but then it's going to be a short week. So how you handle that in the early part of the season, will be an important part of our process.
Nick, right before the roster was announced, Joe's going to be out at least the first 4 weeks. How do you like that running back room? What do you like about that running back room, starting with Nick and what you got in there?
Yeah, we think it's a pretty versatile room. They've all played, other than Woody, have all played good football at different points of their career. They've all helped their respective teams, when they've been called upon. So we're going to need everybody, not only in that room, but throughout the team as well. But I feel like we have pretty good depth. They're all kind of different in terms of what they bring to the table. Nick is his own entity. DP has the things that he brings to the table. Dare probably has the most comprehensive role, because he has a role offensively and in a kicking game as well. And then Woody has a pretty good skill set. So how we're actually able to incorporate that within the offense, we'll kind of have to see how it unfolds.
So I know there's a whole thing going on in this building with you and your staff deploying guys out to watch college and start scouting. Well, you've already started. But for the 2026 draft, I don't want to bog us down in draft talk, but that's underway. People don't realize.
Mark, do it.
Oh, I know you like this. You like this
yes.
part. But you're already examining everything there is to
Yeah, for sure.
out.
We've had folks out at training camp over the month of August, and then the first real weekend of college football was this past weekend. So we had area scouts, national scouts, scouting directors at different games. There was a number of good games over the course of the weekend. So that information is starting to come back to us. I get a weekly update, usually Monday or Tuesday, from what everybody saw that particular week, and start to build up, my document as well. So done a lot of work on a lot of players over the course of the spring, and then we'll be selective here, picking the spots here during the course of the season. Might be an opportunity to get over the SC game. They're playing, I want to say, Saturday night or something like that. So we'll try to maximize our opportunities and try to utilize our resources as best we can.
So this happened in week 0 at Stanford. I'm going somewhere with this. Stanford, Hawaii. Stanford kicked the ball off, and the ball hit the ground, and it popped up in the air. And the kid was standing at the 1-yard line, and he then waved a fair catch and caught the ball, thinking, well, the ball should go to the 25-yard line. And it got me thinking about, had they talked about that? Do you guys as a staff sit and talk with the players about particular new rules or new things that have popped up that they should be aware of? Because he didn't realize it. Now, I don't know if he ever knew it, but is that something that you guys talk about as a staff, Nick?
Yeah, there's so many rules. You have to be careful of inundating them with too much information. Yeah. But what are the ones that are relevant? What are the ones that are kind of germane, maybe that are newish? Really, in the NFL, the kickoff sort of adjustment or rules are probably the biggest thing. There's some other minor tweaks that they've made, but just understanding the rules, what happens, where the ball is kicked. If it's kicked here, here's what happens. Or if this action takes place, here's what happens. So you prepare for it. Inevitably, there's going to be things that come up in the game maybe we haven't talked about or that we haven't practiced, but it's a learning opportunity. So you take the information, and the next time that you're put in a position, hopefully you make the right decision.
The 35-yard line touchback feels radical in that everything's going to be returned now, because you don't want to give up the 35-yard line. So we're going to see a lot more action. And the way Emi kicks the ball off, a lot of bad hops off his kickoffs if he can get it to squib inside the 20.
Yeah, everybody will probably have a philosophy that they're going to go with during the year. But ball handling will be important, and the kicker's ability to change his trajectory and put the returner in a difficult spot. That'll probably be a part of the strategy and the calculus that's involved. So something that we spent time on here in the spring. Once you get into the game, kind of see how it evolves. But really, the line of demarcation there is the 20-yard line. So whatever you're going to do, better make sure it gets past the 20, because if it doesn't, then the ball's at the 40. Then you basically cut the field in half.
At that point, with what we would think is going to be more returns in the game, does that, as you were talking about, kind of bridging the gap, the conversation of, the 2026 NFL draft, because we're going to have more returns, does that add that other wrinkle to it that you want to see? From, hey, man, this guy returns kicks, like Concepcion for A&M. He returned a punt the other night. Hey, he becomes maybe a little bit more valuable because now the return game is that much more valuable because we have more returns than we've ever had.
No, it's a good question, Johnny. I'd say case by case, more than likely. Okay. Ball handling, the ball handlers, they're probably going to put a premium on that. But I would say kickoff return through the years, sometimes it's a trainable skill. Maybe you have a player that hasn't handled the ball, but you try him back there. I'd say Pierce is a really good example of that. We didn't draft Pierce because we thought he was going to be a kickoff returner.
Right.
He's kind of evolved into that because of his ability to make plays with the ball in his hand. Punt return is a teachable skill or trainable skill. You've seen a number of players that hadn't done it before, that they learn it once they get in the NFL. So it depends on the player's capacity and ability to take coaching and learn. If they've done it, they have experience doing it, we certainly make a note, and then we're going to evaluate it. And if it's something that we can incorporate to our advantage, then we'll certainly look at.
I've got one more. So, quick family update, Nick, because this is your 5th season that you are starting here with the Houston Texans organization. Wow. That means your girls have grown up here. They're Texans now. Does it feel like it? How are they doing? Give us an update.
No, they're doing great. We've been rocking and rolling for the last couple of weeks at school. They're active as all get up. So, between cross country, soccer, field hockey. Our youngest is a big cheer fan, so she's immersed in that process. So she's actually decent, so we'll see how far that goes. But, no, it's hard to believe. I mean, they love being here. We've been here. It's like you mentioned, it's our 5th season, so grateful for the opportunity, excited to get started. And, they're immersed in the culture. They don't have a choice, but they're happy to be here.
Very good. All right, Nick, thanks a lot. Good luck.
Thanks, fellas.